She said, "If you are going to be this quiet, maybe you should just leave." I nodded. I didn't say a word. I stood up and walked out. She laughed with her friends until the waiter returned holding the receipt for what I had left behind. "I am Jake, 29, and I have been with my girlfriend Melissa for 3 years. 3 years of what I thought was building something real, something lasting. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. I remember it vividly because she was the only person there who laughed at my terrible dad jokes. We hit it off immediately. Within 6 months, we were talking about moving in together. She was funny, ambitious. She worked in marketing and had this incredible energy. She had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room, like we were a team against the world. Until recently, when I started feeling less like a teammate and more like an anchor she was dragging around. It started about 4 months ago. It wasn't a sudden shift. It was a slow erosion. Melissa joined this new social circle through her work. A tight, exclusive group of about 6 people who went to trendy restaurants, posted everything on Instagram, and seemed to have inside jokes about everything. At first, I was happy she was making friends. She had always complained about feeling lonely in the city. I encouraged it. But then the invitations started coming less frequently for me. And when I did tag along, I felt like a ghost. I felt like an accessory that didn't match her new outfit. The night everything fell apart was supposed to be a celebration. Melissa's friend Amanda was getting engaged. They had planned this big dinner at some upscale Italian place downtown. The kind of place where the menu doesn't have prices and the lighting is so dim you need your phone flashlight to read the wine list. Melissa told me to dress nice. She stressed that it was important I made a good impression. "Please, Jake," she had said while fixing her hair. "Just try to fit in tonight, okay?" I wore the navy blazer she had bought me for Christmas. I polished my shoes. I made sure my hair was neat. I showed up on time. I even brought a bottle of expensive wine for the table, a vintage Cabernet that the guy at the wine shop assured me was impressive. From the moment we sat down, I knew it was going to be bad. The table was round, but somehow I ended up on the periphery. Melissa squeezed in between Amanda and another girl named Bry, leaving me at the end of the table next to some guy I had never met. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my rent. He spent the entire appetizer course on his phone, scrolling through emails and ignoring my attempts at a handshake. I tried joining conversations. I really did. I asked Amanda about the proposal. I asked Bry about her job. But every story I started got talked over. Every joke I made landed flat or got ignored entirely. It was like I was speaking a different frequency that only dogs could hear. About an hour and the wine was flowing, and the volume was rising. Melissa was telling this elaborate story about a disastrous client meeting that somehow turned into comedy gold. Everyone was laughing, leaning in, completely engaged. I knew this story. I was there when she came home crying about it. I knew the context. I tried to add a detail she was leaving out, a funny part about the client's tie. She literally held up her hand, palm out, stopping me mid-sentence. "Babe, I am telling the story," she said, sharp, cold, not even looking at me. Her friends giggled, a nasty little titter that went around the table. I sat back. I felt the heat rise in my neck. I picked at my pasta. I watched her perform for this audience like I wasn't even there. I realized then that she wasn't telling the story to share a moment. She was telling it to gain status. And I was interrupting her performance. Then it happened. The moment that clarified everything. Amanda was showing off her ring. It was a massive diamond. She was passing her hand around the table and everyone was oohing and awing. When it got to me, I made what I thought was a light-hearted complimentary comment. "Wow, that is beautiful," I said. "Must have cost more than my car." Dead silence. The air left the table. Then Bry, the girl sitting next to Melissa, smirked. She took a sip of her cocktail and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Well, some of us have higher standards than others." The table erupted in laughter, not polite chuckling, actual cackling. It was the kind of laughter you hear in a high school cafeteria when the popular kids decide to destroy someone. I looked at Melissa. I was waiting for her to say something, to defend me, to say, "Hey, that is not cool." Anything. She was laughing too. She was covering her mouth with her napkin, but her eyes were crinkled with amusement. I looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw the hurt on my face. She just shrugged. She leaned in and whispered, "Do not be so sensitive, you are making it awkward." I sat there for another 20 minutes in complete silence, not sulking, not pouting. I genuinely had nothing to say to these people anymore. I realized I was sitting at a table with strangers. Even the woman I had slept next to for 3 years was a stranger. My chest felt tight. I kept thinking about all the times over the past few months where Melissa had made me feel small in front of them. The comments about my simple job as an accountant. The way she would correct my grammar at dinner parties. How she had started saying "we" when talking about her friend's plans and "I" when talking about ours. This is what psychologists call status anxiety. Shutterstock, she was climbing a social ladder, and she had decided I was too heavy to carry to the next rung. Finally, Melissa leaned over. Her voice was low, but in the silence of my own head I heard every word perfectly. "If you are going to be this quiet, maybe you should just leave." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a dismissal. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't make a scene. I just looked at her for a long moment. I memorized her face in the candlelight, the contempt in her eyes. I nodded, and I stood up. I pulled out my wallet. I took out my credit card, the heavy metal one I use for emergencies. I walked straight to the front where our waiter was standing by the host station entering orders. "Hey man," I said quietly, "I need you to do me a favor." The waiter looked up. "Sure. Everything okay?" "I am paying for the entire table," I said. "Everything, drinks, food, the appetizers, dessert if they order it, whatever is on the tab." He looked at the table where they were laughing and drinking. "The whole table." "Sir, that is going to be." "I do not care what it is. Run the card, but I need you to wait exactly 5 minutes after I leave before you tell them. Can you do that?" He looked confused, but he nodded. "I can do that." I handed him my card. He ran it. The machine whirred. I signed the receipt when it printed. $847.32. It was a lot of money, but it was the price of my dignity. I walked out into the cold November air. I sat in my car for a while. My hands were shaking, not from anger but from this strange sense of clarity. The fog had lifted. I knew exactly where I stood. My phone started buzzing after about 10 minutes. The waiter must have delivered the news. First a text from Melissa, "Where did you go?" Then another, "Everyone is asking about you." Then, "Jake, seriously, this is embarrassing." Then, "Wait, did you pay?" I didn't respond. I put the car in drive. I drove home, packed a bag, and went to my brother's place across town. Update 1. The fallout. The texts started flooding in around midnight. Melissa called 17 times. 17. She left voicemails that went from confused to angry to apologetic to angry again. I sat on my brother's couch drinking a beer and listening to them. Voicemail 1. "Jake, where are you? You cannot just walk out like that. Bri was just joking." Voicemail 2. "Pick up the phone. This is childish." Voicemail 3. "The waiter said you paid for everything. Everyone is confused. Are you trying to make me look bad?" The last one around 2 a.m. was her crying. "I do not understand why you are doing this. You paid for everyone and just left." Do you know how humiliating that was for me? They think I did something horrible. They think we are breaking up. "Jake, call me back, please." I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it. She was humiliated. She was humiliated because I bought her friend's dinner and removed myself from a situation where I was being abused. The next morning I woke up on my brother's guest bed. My back hurt, but my mind was clear. I checked my phone. A text from Amanda, the bride-to-be. "Hey, I do not know what is going on with you and Mel, but thanks for dinner." That was really generous, even though things got weird. Generous. Like I was some benevolent third party, and not the guy they had spent 2 hours treating like garbage. Melissa showed up at my brother's apartment on Sunday afternoon. I watched from the window as she knocked, waited, knocked again. My brother Mike stood next to me. "You want me to handle this?" he asked. "No," I said, "just let her knock, she will leave." She left after about 15 minutes. She looked small standing there, but I didn't feel the urge to comfort her. That instinct was gone. Monday morning I got a long email. The subject line was, "Can we please talk about this like adults?" The email itself was a masterpiece of deflection. This is what psychologists call gaslighting, manipulating someone into questioning their own reality. She wrote, "I am sorry you felt disrespected. Not I am sorry I disrespected you. I didn't realize you were so upset, despite my silence." Her friends didn't mean anything by their jokes. That is just their sense of humor. Then came the twist, the attempt to shift the blame. "You were overreacting by leaving. Paying for dinner was a manipulative power move that made me look bad. You tried to buy the moral high ground. Not once did she say she was wrong. Not once did she acknowledge how she treated me. She was mad that I had won the interaction by refusing to play their game. I replied with one sentence, 'I think we need space. I will come get my things next week.'" Update 2. The confrontation. She didn't take that well. She called my mom. My mom called me concerned, asking what happened. "Melissa called me crying," my mom said. "She says you are having some kind of breakdown." I gave her the short version, the dinner, the comments, the leave instruction. My mom was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed, a long, heavy sigh. "You know," she said, "I have been biting my tongue for a while, but that girl has always treated you like you are lucky to be with her, like she is doing you a favor." That hit harder than I expected. When your own mother sees it, you know it is real. Melissa started texting mutual friends, spinning her version of events. According to her story, I had gotten irrationally jealous of her friendships, that I had thrown a tantrum at dinner about not getting enough attention, that I had abandoned her in public. She was the victim. I was controlling. 2 friends reached out to get my side. I told them the truth. She told me to leave if I was going to be quiet, so I paid the bill and I left. They both responded with some version of "yeah, that tracks." She has been different lately. Wednesday night I went back to our apartment. I knew she would be at her weekly spin class. I wanted to avoid a scene. I packed methodically. Clothes, books, my gaming setup. My grandfather's watch from the dresser. The coffee maker she never used but I loved, the one that ground the beans fresh. I left the blazer she had bought me hanging in the closet. I didn't want it anymore. It felt like a costume she wanted me to wear. I left the spare key on the counter. I was walking out with my last box when the front door opened. She came home early. She must have skipped class. She stood in the doorway blocking my exit. She looked exhausted. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, yoga pants and an oversized sweater. For a second she looked like the girl I had fallen for 3 years ago, the girl who laughed at my dad jokes. "Jake," she said. Her voice cracked. "Wait, please." I stopped. I turned around holding the box. "I am sorry," she said, and she sounded like she meant it. "I mean it. I was awful that night. My friends were awful. I got caught up in, I do not know, trying to impress them or something. It was stupid." I looked at her. I wanted to believe it, but I knew better. "It wasn't just that night," I said quietly. "It has been months, Melissa. Every time we are with them, you treat me like I am in the way, like I am an embarrassment, like I am not good enough for your new life." "That is not true. You told me to leave. At dinner you literally told me if I was going to be quiet I should leave." She flinched. "I didn't mean." "You did," I said, "and I did what you asked. I left. And then I made sure you didn't have to worry about the bill or looking cheap in front of your friends. And somehow I am still the bad guy in your story." She started crying, not the pretty kind, the real ugly kind, snot and tears. "I do not want to lose you. We can fix this. I will drop the friends. I promise." "You already lost me," I said. "You just didn't notice because you were too busy looking at them." I walked past her. I walked out the door. I walked down the stairs. I loaded the box into my car. I sat there for a second looking up at the window of the apartment we had shared. The light was on. I knew she was in there crying, but I didn't feel sad. I felt free. If you think I made the right choice by walking away, hit the subscribe button. We talk about self-worth and boundaries here on Story Sparks. Final update. The new chapter. It has been 2 months. I am living in a 1-bedroom apartment in a quieter part of town. It is smaller than our old place, but it is mine. I adopted a dog from the shelter, a 3-year-old mutt named Rookie. He sleeps at the foot of my bed. He greets me when I come home, and he doesn't care if I am quiet. He just likes that I am there. Melissa texted me a few times in the first few weeks. Apologies, questions about my family, a weird one asking if I wanted my half of the couch. I kept my responses short and practical. Eventually they stopped. I ran into Amanda, the bride-to-be, at a coffee shop last week. She was with someone new, not Bri. She waved. She came over to my table. She looked embarrassed. "Hey," she said, "I just wanted to say, I am sorry about that night. It was too much." She told me Melissa had been going through something and that the friend group had mostly disbanded anyway. Apparently after I left the dynamic shifted. Without a common target to pick on, they started picking on each other. Bri had started making fun of Amanda's fiancé. The toxicity ate itself. "Too much drama," Amanda said. I nodded politely. "It is good to see you, Amanda. Take care." I didn't ask about Melissa. I didn't ask about the wedding. I realized I didn't care. My brother asked me yesterday if I regretted walking out, if I regretted paying that insane bill. I told him no. The only thing I regret is staying quiet for so long before that night. I should have spoken up months earlier. Should have told Melissa how I felt instead of shrinking myself to fit into her world. This is the sunk cost fallacy. Staying in a bad situation just because you have already invested time in it. I stayed because of the 3 years, not because of the present reality. But I am glad I walked out when I did. I am glad I paid that bill. Not as some grand gesture or revenge play, but because it was the last thing I did in that relationship on my terms. I chose when to leave. I chose how to leave. I left with my head high. And I left knowing I had tried to be the bigger person even when I didn't owe anyone anything. Rookie just nudged my hand with his nose. He has his leash in his mouth. I think it is time for a walk. Edit 1. A lot of people are asking what the $847 was for. Appetizers, entrees, 3 bottles of wine, cocktails, and they ordered tiramisu for the table after I left. They really enjoyed themselves on my dime. Worth every penny to never sit through another dinner like that. It was a severance package for a job I hated. Edit 2. Someone asked if Melissa ever admitted she was wrong. She said she was sorry I felt that way, which is not the same thing. That tells you everything you need to know. Thanks for watching.